Hello.
Hey, man.
Okay, we're on?
Yes, we're on. If this was back in the day, I would be saying we're live on the radio, but technology has made it so that we can't say that. We are now live on the internet. How about that for a modified technology?
Yeah, we could modify it to say now we are alive.
Exactly.
Alive.
Now, with that being said, I promise I'm going to keep you inside the time that I said I was going to go. And I want to give you a little bit about what my live stream is about. It's just simply talk about talking. I don't mention names. I don't mention locations. I don't mention titles or brands or anything like that. Anybody listening to my live stream will not know who my guest is on purpose unless they slip up and say their name. And sometimes if they do anything like that, I try to edit that out. It's pretty much just talk about talking. The topic can be anything, and what I do is I listen for clarity. I listen to what someone is saying. I try to differentiate from what they're saying, what they're meaning, and what I'm processing, as well as what they think I'm saying. So it always ends up being interesting, even if it's boring, because you get to hear different sides of how each one of us process. Just so happen this time I have two subjects that I'm going to stay within our time. And I produced this week like a promo for my live stream, and it was simply entitled Stay Focused. And if I had done my homework, I would have let you I see it. So I'm gonna tell you it's talking about staying focused. And one of the features inside of that presentation is a woman walking down the aisle in her wedding dress as her family and friends are clapping, and her groom, her husband to be, is waiting for her, and she's walking, and it's talking about staying focused, going through trying times and reaching that moment. I put that image in there to send the message that for a woman in particular, if you make it through any of your tough times, that is definitely one of the highlights, if not the greatest highlight, for most women that I know, have known, and that will know. They look forward to that white long train walking down that long aisle with their family and friends watching. And if the truth be told, that, if not, is probably the most moment that they're going to be the center of attention, other than when they're actually born. Would you at least agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Awesome. I like hearing that. Now, here's the thing. Now that I've put that in that image out there, I was speaking with someone else, and that's what gave me the idea for this conversation. As I was explaining, that being a moment, and if not the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments, particularly for women, my other colleague asked me, well, what do you think that is for a man? How do you think that, what is that moment for a man? And I was on the spot. I started scratching my head. I was scratching like a fiend. It's like, okay, because I could not answer, considering that I had put this image of a woman out there. So I immediately went down into my soul, and I thought about what type of endorphins are produced for a man that compares to that moment as I know it for most of the women that I have known, know, and will probably ever know. And I have a response. I'm going to talk about my response, but I want to hear your response, whether it's the same for you or someone you know, or what you know men to be. What moment can you say is compatible to that moment we believe most women experience for that march down that aisle and for that day?
For a man's perspective?
Yes, for a man in general. And it doesn't have to be you. It can be
that
you.
Level. Yeah, you mean something with the similar intensity and focus and ambition for a woman to stand there in anticipation of her groom coming, basically to sweep her off her feet, and they go down the marriage trail and live happily ever after.
Yes, that moment that bride is walking down that aisle with all of that attention. What is compatible for a man based on your perspective?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have.
And before you answer, it's okay. I can hit. What I can do. Take your time. There's no hurry. I really don't want you to do. My other guest, as a process of elimination, he said something, and we ended up talking about something kind of, sort of, totally different. But I don't want you to rush on this because this is serious, and I already have mine in my pocket. But I want to discuss your perspective first, and then I'm going to come back with mine. And there's no hurry. Take your time. Whether it's for you, whether it's through someone or what men or a man to be in general, what could and usually likely produces those same endorphins and that type of impact. Yeah. Take your time.
Now, typically we live in a male-dominated culture, so it has a certain chauvinism intermingled in it. However, it kind of cuts both ways, because while men think that that's the most revered day of every woman, the day that she is betrothed and married and things of that nature, but we assume that it's not that big a deal for men, because it's the bride's day, not necessarily the groom's day. But what most don't appreciate about men is that men are cerebral. They are, in many cases, in a lot of cases, and this might sound chauvinistic too, but I believe it's true to the extent that men are more focused in most cases, in general. And while she's walking down the aisle, he's thinking, will I be able to sustain this relationship?
If I had a sound effect, I'd put it in right there. Go ahead, though. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
But that's what I'm thinking, is that he's having these internal questions that are bombarding his mind as she's drawing closer to him, and that moment of commitment is just upon him. So in many cases, that man is going through such a internal experience or phenomenon that most people don't see with the naked eye, with the physical eye. But I was thinking about this just yesterday, that in context of love and marriage and things of that nature, that that love has become more westernized. And,
more what?
And culturalized.
More what? Did you say
westernized?
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we superimpose Hollywood's version of what love is. We've got stories like Cinderella, we've got Snow White, and all of those things that kind of filtered and taught us what we should expect, our own Prince Charming and things of that nature. And so, but if you go back not too many generations, the whole concept of love and it was not as we describe it here in the West. I get sweaty palms, or my heart rate begins to elevate, and goosebumps all over the place. And that's what I consider a westernized version of love. But when you go back in several generations back, it was never about those response to an emotional serious. You feel emotional, but you can't live off emotions.
Okay.
You can't build a family off emotion. And as a result, that's why I think that most men would probably, if they're thinking correctly, when that moment comes, that's just as much a laser focused moment in his life, just as much as it is hers. She might be thinking in terms of, now I got someone I can love and show affection and make a baby for it, blah blah blah. And because men are more logic driven, they're not necessarily emotionally driven. And so although we do get emotional, all you got to do is check out the finals, basketball finals or NFL playoff. You see, we get emotional. But in general, we are more cerebral. That's why a man can go 4 hours inside of a fishing hole, standing there and catch nothing, and think he still had a good day. Because he didn't go there for the fish; he went there for his thoughts.
Okay, so you're saying that that same scenario would be equivalent for a man? I want to make sure I'm hearing you. Is that what I'm hearing?
I believe so.
Ooh.
You know, because a man can say, he can almost hear that player's door slamming in behind him. As the closer she gets, bam. No more running around.
I don't know if that's the same, though, in the sense that a woman is getting excited. Would a man be getting more nervous than excited? Which is why I'm saying it's kind of different.
Nervous and excitement are the same.
Okay.
As far as the emotional, they come from the same place.
Okay.
They ascribe different results, though.
Okay.
You know, so emotionally speaking, they're same from that same endorphin area of the brain. It's hard to differentiate between the two.
All right, I appreciate that. I want to save time for my next part. You know, for the next part of my. But now, what I want to do is now give you what I came up with.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to be a little, a more, purposeful than I was with my last guest. What I think generates that same level of endorphins and that same level of, excitement for a man is the day that he looks into the mirror of his soul, as well as, the physical mirror. But when he has a perspective of himself that he is, first of all, productive, and that he is also accepted and loved and cherished and honored and even respected. I put productive and respective first and last for a reason, with all those things in the middle. But when a man can find himself in a place, whether it's a day or a season in his life or a moment when he's standing in the mirror, that he is productive, he can take care of himself, he can take care of his family, he can take care of people around him, he can take care of his village, so to speak. I think that day is the day that a man gets the most fulfillment out of any kind of emotion he can have. And as much as I agree with the actual event having a similar effect, I'm thinking of that level of endorphins, and I'm using word endorphins. I don't even know what it means. I know it's like a chemical that goes in through the brain and just pumps you up and gets you excited. But I'm saying, that level of acceptance and completion and accomplishment when a woman is now someone's wife, that is exciting based on what I've heard women say, and I know women to like, want, and appreciate and get excited about. I've never seen a woman and her friends get more excited about them or one of their friends actually getting married and they have something to do with it. So I hear what you said. I appreciate it and I respect it. But I'm thinking when a man can stand up and say, I can sustain all that comes with that, and he's in that mirror and he's in that place of where he's particularly financially, and I don't want to say finances because notice I didn't say that in the beginning, and I don't mean to put it into the basis of what I'm saying. I'm just including it now because it includes, the productive part. I'm just going to say it now. When he's financially, secure, and he's able to sustain himself in those things that he has taken responsibility of. I think that is the moment that's equivalent to the wedding day of a bride. Do you see what I'm saying different than what you said? Do you have the same response? Has your response changed since I painted that picture? Or are you sticking with, what you said in terms of the actual wedding day for the man? Is what I'm saying valid at all?
It resonates because the most resonating aspect of what you spoke of is respect and productivity. I think, of course, men get excited about his ability to produce something. Much like when I used to do yard work before God put me on retirement. I like to mow the lawn in a particular fashion where it's almost a checkerboard design on the lawn. So when I'm done with that, I look at it. I say, I like that. That looks good. But I got to go and get my wife and say, baby, come look at this. You see what I did? You see what I did? Why? Because we like that affirmation. We like that confirmation.
Right.
And that adulation.
Right.
So I get a certain zeal from that as well. So I say it's kind of both sides, because we were talking about excitement versus nervous. I think that's what it was, right?
Right. Yes.
Right? Nervous versus excitement.
Yeah, that was that was the clean word that I can come up with. That was the cleanest word I could come up with.
Yeah, but again, for most men, again, productivity is high on their list, but because that's something they made of themselves. They took their hands, their head knowledge, and developed something that's useful and benefiting to not just himself but society at large.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. That resonated with me, and that was a good conversation. Two different types of dynamics, but pretty much the same foundation. So I appreciate that, and I still have time for the second part of the topic. And thank you again for coming on with me, and thank you for expressing yourself in that way and giving me your thoughts about that topic. So,
my pleasure.
The second part is this. I discovered, a part of, through my so-called, for lack of a better word, work, I discovered some things about myself that is a major part of who I am today. And I'm finding myself now looking for a certain type of peace when it comes to particularly conflict. So I'm just putting that out there. My live stream, if you listen to the introduction and you listen to the promo, it talks about listening, hearing, processing what you're hearing, processing what someone is saying, processing what's actually going on, filtering that through what's real, and then being okay with what you discover. So with that being said, I want to talk about the 3 things that I use as filters, and I want your opinion on whether or not those filters are even realistic to consider, particularly when resolving conflict. So the 3 things are universal principles, points of references or reference, and law. If there's not a conflict or disagreement of any kind, people don't need to consider those things as much. They're just kind of built in subconsciously. We're, interacting with those things anyway. But I'm talking about in the season and time of conflict, whether it's between 2 people, a group of people, or a nation of people. When you look at universal principles, points of reference, and law, I think you can solve, conflict. Sometimes the reason we don't solve conflict is not being okay with what we discover after those 3 processes. So before I explain to you and give you, my definition of what those are, do you have any questions at all? Real quick. Oh, no
questions.
Okay. So
I'm tracking.
Okay. So what I'm going to give you my definition of universal principles. You already know, but for the sake of, documenting, universal principles are things that just cannot be changed. They're set in place. I can't do anything about it. You can't do about it. I don't care how much we cry and complain. We can't change what is considered set. So, for lack of a better word, in stone. Point of reference is something that may not necessarily be a universal principle, but it is something that has been established amongst different societies. So if you're in a certain region or a certain part of the world, a country, or on the planet, there are certain things that is considered a norm. So although it may not be a principle, it is something that is a reasonable expectation amongst those that are considering that, that process. And the last but not least, of course, is the law. Laws are different in different states, cities, regions, and different geographical areas. So if there is a conflict and you filter your conflict through those 3 processes, me personally, I don't believe that there's any problem, I don't care who it's between, that cannot be resolved if they are filtered through those processes. Does that make sense? That there is always a solution to every problem. Do you agree with that?
There is always.
Okay.
There is always a solution.
Okay. So now
but the variable are those who are supposedly, vying for that solution.
Okay.
You see, because there's, it's okay to respond now. I don't want to
Okay. No, what I want to say is those filters that I just mentioned, if there is a conflict between anything and two people come together, I like what, one of my favorite books says, let's reason together. If two people are attempting to reason and they're considerate of the fact that, okay, we need a resolution, you may not like it. You may not even, you should be able to comprehend it at least. But those filters that I just mentioned, are they good, bad, or ugly filters to consider in times of conflict?
I would think that they are probably perfect, the ideal principles and laws and one other you mentioned. But
points of reference is meaning what is acceptable, reasonable expectation for a for society, for a society.
Mm-hmm. For a particular outcome.
Right.
I agree with you on that, and particularly on principles, because I tend to live by principles, and because just like laws, they are transferable. They work in every environment, no matter where you go. Mm-hmm. So, but if there are two people in a fallout in a relationship and they find themselves in conflict, the one thing I've written in a book that has not yet to be published, but it's called 12 Things That Ruin Relationships. Mm-hmm. It's a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. Mm-hmm. And one of the points I put in is that you don't know how to fight fair. You don't fight. So arguing and fighting are two very different and distinct outcomes or intentions. So, such as, arguing leads to intelligent discussion, towards a logical conclusion.
Okay. This would be a moment right now, based on what you just said just now, this would be one of those moments I'd ask the audience to clap. This would be one of those moments where we could say, somebody say, y'all ain't saying nothing in here. This would be an amen moment. Just repeat that for me. Argument leads to what? An intelligent discussion? Is that what you said?
Yes, an intelligent discussion towards a logical conclusion.
Wow. Man, I know that ain't real deep, but to me it's deep and it's heavy and it's appropriate for right now. But go ahead, please continue. Yeah,
and conversely, fighting leads to broken things like vases and plates and windows, tires, things of that nature.
Hearts.
So the question is, it becomes a question of, do you want to win at any cost? If you just argue for the sake of being the winner, then you're going to be more destructive in your approach. But if you're, winning where I get to win, as opposed to we get to win, we should always enter a disagreement with a certain unspoken rule in place. One of them is that we're looking for answers and not someone to blame. Mm-hmm. And so when we play the blame game, that's that process of making sure I win at any cost, no matter what it costs you, as long as I win.
Now, how does fighting fair or arguing fair, how does being fair come into play with that?
Well, a friend of mine used to say there's 4 rules to communication. Number 1, what you say. Number 2, how you say it. Number 3, how you look when you say it. And number 4, where you say it.
Okay.
Now, I suggest that all 4 of those have to be kind of checked off to make sure and ensure there would be, meaningful dialogue. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to speak at the top of my voice to try to argue my position. Mm-hmm. So we can have a conflict of interest in our views right now, and still have this same tone.
Right.
This same tenor that I'm not belittling you, or this era now. We are in this phase where everybody's conscious of shaming, body shaming, complexion shaming. Well, if I want to win by shaming you, then that's counterproductive and self-destructive to the relationship we're supposed to be, engaged in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's my concept. As when it comes to conflict, we want to find an answer, not someone to blame.
I like that. On that note, how important is the truth in all of that discovery? Sometimes, you can win without the truth. How important is the truth, and does the truth matter when it comes to winning?
For me, the truth is everything, because everything outside of that is a fallacy and faulty at best. It may look prosperous for a moment, but it requires maintenance. It's like they say, tell the truth because it's easier.
Okay, so we've got
lie is high maintenance.
We've got 5.5 more minutes before we're done. I kind of want to just on the way out on that. When you talked about how you say something, how you look, those 4 things you went through. When the truth is present, can the truth be presented any kind of way? Somebody said, well, this person says the truth, I just don't like the way they said it. If the truth is the truth, yes or no, does it matter how it's presented?
I think so.
So your answer is yes.
I believe so. You can have the right answer and present it the wrong way, and no one will benefit from that.
Okay, I like that. So the truth can be the truth. It can just be maybe at the wrong time or the wrong way.
And that's the tragedy, because if you've got truth always leads to freedom and liberality.
All right, you
and liberty.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how you present
it at the altar of lies. Then
Wait, say that again.
What did you end up at the truth?
What did you say
if
about?
You sacrifice the truth at the altar of lies. If you put truth up and just sacrifice it to lies, then that's going to be high maintenance. Now, and at some point, even it may not even be during your lifetime, but at some point, that lie will surface and truth will address it at that point.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
something just flew in my eye. And it's not tears, so I'm not getting emotional, I promise. But that was good. I like, and this is a good place to close. Regardless of how you cover, the truth, you just said it will always face, the truth will always face a lie, whether it's now or even after, your life. The truth always finds a way to surface. I have seen it myself in so many cases. So as much as I'd love to keep you, man, I've enjoyed this. I always make my guests promise, unless they're not hurting real bad at this time, that they'll promise to come back at another time, man. You promised to come back, and it wasn't so bad, was it?
No, pain-free.
Right. This was a pretty good discussion, and it made sense. And I believe, my guest, and I know I got something out of it. You said a lot of things that I wrote down and that I'm going to keep in my little hat. I like those 4 things, and I'm okay. And I believe my audience will say the same thing. This was a good dialogue, and we are so on time. If I hang up now, within the next 45 seconds, we will have honored both of our words.
Well, let me go on record as saying again how honored I am to be a part of this discussion, and look forward to doing it again.
You got it, man. Thank you so much. Love you, appreciate you, respect you, and we got to talk real soon, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, 10-4. Take care.
Take care.